Your daughter was rushed to the hospital in an emergency. Both mother and child are in critical condition. I received an unexpected call from the OB/GYN who had been overseeing my pregnant daughter's checkups. Apparently, she had collapsed in the snow just outside her house, and a neighbor discovered her and called an ambulance immediately. I couldn't comprehend this sudden turn of events, but I rushed to the hospital without hesitation. Please let them be safe. God, please protect my daughter and her unborn child. 2 hours later, I arrived at the hospital, only to be met with a harsh reality. My name is Grace, and I am 55 years old. My husband passed away in an accident 3 years ago. My daughter, Kaylee, who was already married at the time, worried about me. However, not wanting to intrude on her new family, I declined their offer to live together and chose to live a couple of hours away by car. Kaylee, 27, is incredibly patient and never complains about trivial matters. Whenever I called to check in, she always responded with a bright voice, "Everything's fine, I'm enjoying life." Her husband, Blake, is a brash person who has never shown me any respect since the day we first met. His self-centered tendencies often put his opinions before Kaylee's, even during their wedding preparations, leaving me to wonder if Kaylee was truly happy. However, I never anticipated this dire situation. Why was my pregnant daughter out in the snow? Please let her be safe. Upon arriving at the hospital, the neighbor who had called the ambulance was with me, providing details of what had happened. Just then, the doctor in charge approached. Your daughter is currently unconscious and in very critical condition. She was conscious when she arrived at the hospital and insisted that her husband not be contacted, giving us your phone number instead. In the hospital room, I held Kaylee's hand and repeatedly called her name, but she never opened her eyes again. After a while, she quietly passed away. I couldn't believe that my dear Kaylee was no longer in this world. Overwhelmed with despair, my body felt as heavy as lead, and I couldn't stand up. After some time in shock, I had to call Blake, Kaylee's husband, from my cell phone. When he answered, his slurred speech made it clear he was heavily drunk. As soon as I said hello, he mistook me for Kaylee and began speaking unilaterally. "Hey Kaylee, is all the snow at the entrance cleared? Once you're done, come pick me up in the car. Blake, Kaylee has passed away." "Ha! What are you talking about? Who the hell are you?" I struggled to hold back my tears and told him I was Kaylee's mother. For a moment, he seemed to hesitate, but he refused to believe that Kaylee had passed away, convinced that I was lying. "You had Kaylee shoveling snow and took the house key to go out drinking, which led to this cruel outcome." "Shoveling snow? How do you know about that?" "All right, Kaylee must have told you." "No, I heard it from the neighbor. They found Kaylee fainted in the snow when they returned from shopping. When they asked what happened, Kaylee said something shocking. You had locked her out of the house before going out drinking, so she couldn't retrieve her cell phone and lost consciousness in the freezing cold." "The house key? All right, I kept it because if it fell in the snow, it wouldn't be found." "Don't lie. You told my heavily pregnant daughter to stay outside until she finished shoveling snow." "Stop nagging, old woman. Don't interfere in our marital matters, and stop making tasteless jokes about death. Kaylee could have just simply be gone." No matter how many times I tried to explain to Blake that our daughter was no longer with us, he refused to grasp the reality. "Call a taxi and come home immediately. I'm heading to your house too. Let's talk face to face." "No way. You and Kaylee are planning to blame everything on me, aren't you?" "Oh, I feel sick. I'm too dizzy from the alcohol. I'll stay at a nearby hotel tonight." With that, he unilaterally hung up the phone. My heartfelt words failed to reach him at all. I didn't expect him to be this unreasonable, but I also didn't feel like calling him back. Contemplating my next move, I, drained of the strength to drive 2 hours back to my own house, decided to spend the night at Kaylee's. Taking a taxi, I arrived at Kaylee's house, where I found vegetables like green onions and radishes left cut in the kitchen. She must have been preparing dinner just a few hours ago. She was here, and now I can't even talk to her. The pain is overwhelming. Kaylee. As I wiped my tears and cleaned up the kitchen, I stumbled upon Kaylee's diary in the kitchen cupboard. Recalling the conversations with the neighbor and the doctor, I realized this might offer insights into Kaylee's life. Desperate to understand why my daughter, who should have been eagerly awaiting the birth of her baby any day now, had been taken from us, I turned to her diary. I believed that within its pages lay the truth. What I discovered was beyond anything I could have imagined. Kaylee had resigned from her job due to declining health during pregnancy, unable to continue working. Instead of support, Blake berated her, labeling her a useless wife and financial burden. Despite suffering from morning sickness, she was still expected to cook meals and prepare lunchboxes daily. Blake even called her during his workday, demanding additional chores and leaving her with little time to rest. If only I had realized the extent of her suffering sooner, perhaps Kaylee would still be here, healthy and content. The diary unveiled a grim reality. Despite enduring these harsh circumstances, Kaylee never considered divorce, haunted by a threatening remark from Blake. "Don't you dare think about leaving me and seeking freedom. If we were to divorce, I, as the breadwinner, would gain custody of the baby. You wouldn't see the child at all, so keep that in mind." Exploiting Kaylee's fear of raising the child alone, Blake effectively bound her with invisible chains. After finishing the diary and vividly envisioning my daughter's anguish, my heart quivered with sorrow, tears flowing uncontrollably. I yearned to seek retribution against Blake. Until I've avenged Kaylee, I won't find peace. Yet the diary alone lacked the evidence to prove his responsibility for her demise. Despite my efforts, I unearthed no concrete proof that Blake had expelled my pregnant daughter into the snow. As dusk settled the following day, Kaylee's phone, left at home, received a call from Blake. "Hey Kaylee, stop playing dead. It won't work on me. Prepare my favorite dish tonight and wait for me at the entrance, kneeling. How many times do I have to tell you that my daughter is gone? If that's true, then show me the proof." "Fine," I replied, swiftly ending the call, and promptly sent him a photo of Kaylee's death certificate. I assumed even someone like Blake would be struck with grief upon realizing Kaylee's departure was because of him. As expected, he called back hastily. "Do you understand now? So it's true then? Well, nothing can change the dead. I'll collect the life insurance payout and move on from the troublesome past. What about the funeral?" Ah, such a hassle. Confronted with Blake's callous words, anger surged through me, causing my hand to tremble. I couldn't bear to let such a man take the lead in mourning my daughter's passing. No, I would see her off to the next world myself. Suppressing my rage, I presented a proposition to Blake. "I'll handle the funeral arrangements and take the lead as the chief mourner. You attend as her husband. You'll cover all the funeral expenses, but any condolence money received will go to me. Agreed? Fine. I'll ensure my relatives attend. Make sure to invite as many of yours as possible so the condolence sum is substantial." With an unsettling cheerfulness, Blake declared, "I'll be staying at a hotel for a while," before abruptly ending the call. He must be consumed by greed. Despite the tragic fate that befell Kaylee, he remains unaffected, showing no remorse for his departed wife and unborn child. The devastation in my heart at Kaylee's loss transformed into a burning desire for revenge against Blake. I couldn't let Kaylee's pain go unanswered. I vowed to make Blake face the consequences of his actions. I stayed at Kaylee's house until the funeral, taking care of all the arrangements. On the day of Kaylee's service, Blake approached me, hands in his pockets and a sly smirk on his face. "I'll play the role of the grieving husband who couldn't lead the mourning. You play your part properly. After the funeral, I'll take the condolence money and be on my way." His callous words ignited a fury within me, but I pushed aside my anger to focus on bidding farewell to my beloved daughter. Both families gathered, tears flowing freely as they mourned, lamenting, "She was too young to be taken from us." It's unbearable. Kaylee's absence feels unreal. After a few moments of shared grief, I stepped forward to address the gathering as the chief mourner. Thank you all for joining us today to honor the memory of my daughter Kaylee. The truth is, as I began to recount the tragic loss of our late-term pregnant daughter, a somber hush fell over the assembly, replaced by murmurs of disbelief. Suddenly, Blake rose from his seat. "Don't be deceived by this woman's fabrications." Kaylee insisted on clearing the snow herself, disregarding my objections. "That's why this tragedy occurred." I was speechless as Blake started to fake tears. I had anticipated his response, so I retrieved my daughter's diary that I had brought along. Here's an excerpt from the day before Kaylee's passing. Blake insisted I clean every corner of the house, but my belly was in pain, so I couldn't manage it today. He grew furious and tossed away our dinner just as I was about to eat. "I'm concerned if the baby isn't getting enough nutrition." "That's an exaggeration," he interjected hastily. "I merely tripped and accidentally knocked the food off the table." She's painting me as the villain. She's completely deluded, he interjected, but I brushed off his interruption and continued reading. If we divorce, as I'm currently unemployed, I will be able to raise the child on my own. Blake told me, if you want to keep custody, you'll be my slave for life. Don't read things that aren't written there. You're causing everyone to misunderstand me. Despite his loud protests, his complexion was steadily paling, his expression betraying the truth. He began to advance towards me as if unable to contain himself, but some of our relatives intervened. Do you think you can get away with this? I'll call the police and have you arrested for defamation. Shouldn't you be the one facing the police? Don't overstep your bounds. Choose your words carefully. His true character was laid bare, no matter how hard he attempted to conceal it. Blake's piercing glare, directed at me, emanated pure villainy, evident to all who observed. Attendees sighed and murmured, "What a despicable man. The lowest of the low." Well, perhaps I overreacted a tad. Kaylee merely embellished our petty marital squabbles in her diary. Please trust me, he attempted to deflect, still under the illusion that he could talk his way out of the situation, oblivious to the seriousness of his actions. I reminded him that neglecting a pregnant woman and her unborn child, leaving them exposed to the elements, would result in severe consequences. You've got no proof. If you do, let's see it. He sneered down at me, chuckling as if he thought I was bluffing. We do have evidence. Before coming to the funeral home, I checked the dash cam footage from our neighbor's car. It captured everything. Ah, it's impressive how it's always recording, even when the engine's off. Well, I'm calling the police. As I presented him with the SD card from the dash cam, Blake clicked his tongue in frustration. Damn, I had already reached out not only to the neighbors but also to the doctor who had treated Kaylee, asking them to testify. I was mistaken. It's my fault. Let's settle this amicably. I'll give you half of the life insurance and condolence money, so please forgive me, Blake pleaded. Stop jesting. I lost my daughter, who meant more to me than my own life. Do you think you can resolve this with money? I hope you feel the same despair Kaylee felt out in the cold and harsh elements. I promptly dialed the police and relayed the entire situation. They agreed to hasten to the funeral home. Meanwhile, relatives present at the service kept a vigilant watch over Blake to prevent any attempt to flee. You'll be apprehended soon. You should seek forgiveness from Kaylee before then. Kaylee, I apologize. Please spare me from the afterlife, Blake muttered insincerely before turning to me and beginning to grovel pathetically. Mother-in-law, I'll apologize as many times as it takes. Please call the police back and explain it was all a mistake. Please, Blake pleaded desperately. I shook my head firmly, my gaze fixed on my daughter lying in the coffin. Kaylee was eagerly awaiting the arrival of her baby. I'll ensure justice is served for your wrongs. With a cold stare, I watched as Blake approached, his face paling and trembling as he sensed impending consequences. No, help me, Blake pleaded, panic overtaking him as tears streamed down his face, attempting to flee but restrained by his father and relatives. They held him tightly, rendering him unable to escape as the police arrived. He was swiftly escorted away in the back of a patrol car. His parents and relatives later bowed deeply to me and my daughter, offering repeated apologies. As I glanced at my daughter's serene face in the coffin, it seemed to wear a faint smile. At last, a burden weighing on her heart has been lifted. Kaylee, may you journey to the other world unburdened. The dashcam footage and testimonies provided undeniable evidence leading to Blake's incarceration. Confined within the cold, towering walls of prison, surrounded by daunting individuals, he now faces the consequences of his actions. Additionally, he lost his job, and with his parents and relatives severing ties, his future prospects look bleak. On another note, I never disclosed to Blake, as he never inquired, but Kaylee's baby was born safe and sound. I have chosen to raise the child as Kaylee designated me as the beneficiary of her life insurance. As the child grows, I intend to pass down everything. I'm grateful that at least Kaylee's grandchild is secure. Moving forward, I will shower double the love onto this child, my own and that of my departed daughter. 3.5